My esteemed teacher, Professor Kar, and dear participants, we are privileged to have today Professor Kar to deliver his lecture. All of you, I did not introduce, all of you must have been his students. And one important thing is, with the growth of the age, he has become matured in the intellect, but become younger in the physique. Might be, I am looking older than him. The secrecy is simple living.
ବାର୍ଦ୍ଧକ୍ୟ ସ୍ପର୍ଶ କରିବନି ବୋଧେ ପାଇଛନ୍ତି ରେଭର କ୍ରିମ ତମକୁ ସେତେବେଳେ ଜାଣୁଥିଲା
He is a person that time when Utkala University was not known in all India sphere. Professor Kar has the stamina to go everywhere in India, and he is known everywhere. If you ask him, do you know him? Yes, I have seen him 30 years back. In one sense, he has given identity to Utkala University by his presence, by his contribution, and he was a senior fellow of ICPR. He was also similar. He was also a fellow of Center for Advanced Study in Simla. And the point is, whenever we work for something, we get tired. But when he works, he gets stimulated. Therefore, we are very fortunate to get him, to get our teacher in our books. The refresher course is not merely meant to get some new knowledge. It is there, but there is something else. We will have some interaction with ourselves. We will have some interaction with our old teachers. That we are trying to do. And Professor Kar has been kind enough. I must tell you one thing. It is very difficult to be the course coordinator of a refresher course because you have to contact different resource persons. I thank you, sir. From the side of the participants, on my own behalf, Professor Kar will be taking 6 classes. It will be a lecture for 3 days. Today, 8th and 9th, sir. Okay, 8th and 9th.
The one-page abstract that I have given to you is in consideration of giving me one lecture at the beginning because of their own programming that was difficult. So in that way I have prepared the abstract. Since it is on the topic, a very broad one, philosophy, religion and science, therefore it has been summarized or very much precise only in one page. Today, after hearing these things from Professor Panigrahi, I have switched over to another point. That is, today I will mainly confine myself to what philosophy is in general and what is being regarded to philosophy by philosophers themselves and also by the commoners. On the next 2 days I will switch over to other things, and then of course there will be the interrelation between the 3 disciplines that also will be taken up, if at all they are disciplines. And before that, about me, he has been kind enough to say some things. The more important thing which I want to tell you, just I will take 2 minutes time. I am just a student still in philosophy. I do not know many things which are passed as philosophy in many parts of the world. Our knowledge is extremely limited, and I don't know. I think that you should not have that kind of setting. But I was told by other people that mostly teachers today or the senior people in the subject in different colleges and universities even, they do not have the clear knowledge about their subject. It's not simply philosophy, it may also be extended to other subjects, I do not know. This is what I am told, it is not my opinion. It is not my opinion. Either they do not know or they do not intend to know further. They simply remain confined to the text and the syllabus, whatever is given, and somehow or other they finish their job by doing this thing. This is what I have told. Whether it is correct or not, I do not know. Hoping that it is not correct. I would say to you that the more I study philosophy, the more I find myself difficult in the sense that there are many things which I could not read, many things which I do not know. Start with philosophy. One of the prominent philosophers of the last century, most prominent, or rather one of the most prominent philosophers, and whose book is sold maximum in the entire 20th century. In the entire 20th century, that book is sold maximum. That kind of honor the philosopher has got. He starts with the saying in one of his books, what is philosophy? It is difficult to answer. The very first sentence begins with the saying, what is philosophy? It is difficult to answer. And a philosopher says, a prominent philosopher or a distinguished philosopher says that. A.J. Ayer, Central Questions of Philosophy. Questions of Philosophy. This is the book. It is very difficult to answer. Now this sentence by itself seems to be somewhat startling, even for a newcomer. A philosopher says philosophy. What is philosophy? Is difficult. What does it signify? You go to a doctor, you say this is the kind of thing. Oh, it's very difficult. What sort of thing it is? This should be the first reaction. Is it not the reaction? Yes. And that keeps me more interested to go through the book again further. And of course, it's a very important book. No doubt. The point that he suggests, it is difficult in the sense there is no subject matter which is called as philosophy. There is no specific subject matter which is called philosophy. This is the next point. How there is no next thing? There is BA in philosophy, BA honors in philosophy, MA in philosophy, PhD, so many things. And the person says that there is no subject matter. Of course, from a definite point of view, or from a definite context, he says that. Well, what does it mean? It says, you go to a botanist, you go to a sociologist, you go to a political scientist, whatever it may be. It is, of course, it's a relatively new subject. Previously it was economics, it was added mixed up with economics. They will tell you this is the area, this is the point of research. Okay. What is chemistry? Composition of bodies, study of the composition of bodies, or things like that. Or about matter as such. Physics will be the best example. In that way, you ask, what is the subject matter of philosophy? Supposing a student in your class raises this question, it is very easy to answer in the way in which I have talked about the other subjects. It is not that. So this also is a point which we should bear in our mind. We should bear in our mind if we want to be sincere. So this is one. Now, but sir, we have certain areas which we discuss in philosophy. These set areas, what are those? Metaphysics, theory of knowledge, isn't it? Or ethics. Now, in an extended sense also it is given a new direction. Sometimes also we talk about philosophy of religion and things, so many different. Now, but these are the branches which we study. Ethics or aesthetics and things like that. But then the point is, what are we doing? Prominent among them, of course, is in this tradition. The prominent among them is metaphysics. Metaphysics, isn't it? What is metaphysics? What is this type of subject it is? There may be further dispute even among the metaphysicians. Even among the metaphysicians, there is a dispute about what metaphysics is. You see, gradually the first question is being extended to the branches also, one of the prominent branches also. This is another thing that we should bear in our mind. And when we compare with different philosophical traditions, whether of European tradition or American tradition or in Indian standard, if at all India is having a definite set in philosophy, whatever it is, or Chinese tradition even for that matter, we find the great variances. There are great variances. So out of that, how to decide what it is? Philosophy doesn't have this is another point of view. Just in shortcut I would say. Philosophy doesn't have any clear, definite, pinpointed subject matter of its own, like that of any sciences or social sciences. But it is only to find out a kind of, find out the criterion or the principles which are being advocated in that particular subject for its pursuit, and how far it is quite valid or invalid, or whether the reasonings are all right, whether the criteria is valid or invalid, and things like that, that we discuss. Philosophy is only to analyze, that is how it is being said. Philosophy is only to analyze the different subjects and their fundamentals, and then try to arrive at certain conclusions, which may yield knowledge or may lead a kind of clarification or clarity or things like that. This is another direction, a point of view. I am just apprising you about different points of view. Okay? But then another question also can be raised from a fellow scientist or a fellow social scientist, or even a student also can raise this question. Sir, why do you say so? You in your class can say so, because it is a philosophy class and you are the master. But how is it a statement which can be spelled out so easily before others? The man of chemistry will at once retort by saying, well, why do you say that? You are to assess our criteria and principles and norms, whatever we have in our subject. A botanist also will say same thing. A sociologist will say same thing. And in what way you are competent? Without knowing ABC of chemistry, without knowing ABC of botany or any other subject, or even any social science subjects. With what authority you are saying this? This can be the question. Will it be an invalid question? It will be a valid question. Just because we happen to read philosophy, we cannot just go on supporting each and everything of philosophy. We have to re-examine and reassess our own things, even if it is told by our masters, our great masters of the past. Philosophy is the sum total of everything. That is also saying in some days past, in 18th or 19th centuries. But how is it to be accepted? With what authority you have to analyze the subject matters, fundamentals in one way or the other, and you say this is the thing, this is clarity. Why that your version would be clear and our version will be unclear? Can it be a question? It can be a question. But in that way, unfortunately, our textbooks on philosophy, they are not written in that particular form. They have never raised this question. The mind must be clear and inquisitive, right from the start, right from the beginning. but that is not taken away. So the question of difference between one view and the other view and the another view becomes all the time wide and wide and wide. Is not it? So that becomes another problem. So before telling whatever is there in the book, whatever is there in the text, before doing that, I think as a very humble student of philosophy, I must try to question, not in the sense of negation, but in the sense of knowing further. Not in the sense of negating that, oh, this is a rubbish nonsense. Not in that way. But try to know what will be there, what is the nature of the thing. That is very important. So, any student, I think, perhaps it is not very much inappropriate that we should challenge and we should question the fundamentals. We should challenge, question the fundamentals of that subject. Unless until we do that, hey, this is said in Gita, this is said in Mahabharata, or X or Y or Z, for example. So this is the gospel truth. That leads to dogmatism. That leads to intellectual apathy. That one should be very clear. So there is nothing wrong. Of course, just by putting the question how, why, when, what, the question doesn't become relevant. Just you simply why it is so, how it is so. If you just go on repeating these questions in this manner, that would not give us any clarity, because such questions may be vague and unwanted and unwarranted. But then the point is, just because of that, we should not ask question at all and we should accept everything that is being told. That also is not clear. Do you follow my point? Am I clear? Just accepting whatever is said, perhaps there is a definite deficiency in that approach. So, if some people have said that, no, we are simply to analyze, we are simply to clarify, we are simply to see what the fundamentals are, and that is what philosophy is. If somebody says that, it may, at the outset, may be found to be somewhat satisfactory in the sense that that is the reason why it doesn't have any subject matter of its own, as I said to you in the beginning. But still then, it raises further issues. It raises further questions. So, one must try to go deep into the point, somewhat deep into the point, so that he or she can do justice to the subject matter itself. To the subject matter itself. Now, another example I am giving you. Supposing you say that among philosophers there are so many different views. You have read history of philosophy, or you have got good acquaintance on history of philosophy, particularly of the either Eastern or Western, you have found different views. Well, in physics or in chemistry also there are different theories. All men of science, they don't have full agreement, they have different views. So in that way, supposing somebody has different views about philosophy, what harm is there? No, but there is a difference. There is a difference in different theories of science or theories of social science on one hand, and say in philosophy, in the history of philosophy that you have come across. There are differences, but differences are of different kind again. Again, different kind. You see, in order to make further probing into the matter, inquiry into the matter, investigation into the matter, we find it still more difficult. Well, for instance, you take up the example of, realism, what it is. We all know, we are very much well concerned that he is a realist. Oh, he is an idealist. Berkeley is an idealist. That is well known to all of us. Or Locke is a realist. Now, but when we go deep into the matter, do you think that a Locke will ever agree with Berkeley? My point is this. Do you think, or should we think that Berkeley will agree with Locke, or Locke will, one will say, in philosophy, if at all we take up theory of knowledge, in philosophy, my concern is about the knowledge. And if we want to know about what knowledge is, I must say that knowledge is about the object. Knowledge is about the object. And the object is, this is not my view, this is a particular view. This is not my view, this is a particular view. Knowledge is about the object. And that object must be independent of my knowing. That object, whatever it is, that object, whatever I claim to know, that must be independent of my knowing. I may know it, I may not know it, but still it becomes an object in its own independent form. Because it is an independent object, so that I look to it and then I have the knowledge that it is a book or things like that. Whose view would be this? Realist view. Realist view in general. This must be the realist view. That the object of knowledge must be independent of my knowing. What about Berkeley or his RIDP, his supporters? What will be the view? No, there is no object. The talk about object is a myth. That is no philosophy at all. He would come to this example, this point. In my language I am putting it, not in his language. What will be his encounter? He says that, well, anything that is known, that cannot be independent of my knowing. Just the reverse. Anything that I know cannot be conceived as independent of my knowing. Because if at all I am only confined to my knowing or our knowing, whatever it may be, my knowing or our knowing, that must be, so far as my knowing field is there, the framework must be there. So beyond my knowing thing that there are objects independently, what right have I got to say? Is it clear to all of you? If I am confined to my knowing, or we all are confined to our respective knowing, then from our respective knowing we can only say that whatever is known to us. We have got no logical, legal, valid authority to say that there are objects independent of my knowing. So, realism is false. Ideas alone are real. Berkeley. ACS, that is a famous saying. You must know these things. Now, my appeal to you is this, myself, without referring to Locke or Berkeley. Does it not lead to the conclusion, this kind of strong difference between the two parties, Lockean and the Berkeleyan, or the realist and the idealist, that philosophy conception of one party goes in a different direction than the other. Philosophy differs. Amongst philosophers there is a different view. There are the saying that mostly either you talk in terms of metaphysics or you talk in terms of analysis. In the recent past, say within 200 years, the question of analysis has come to the forefront. For some time it remains. Even now also it remains, more or less. In the previous mechanism, previous setup, of course, that still continues somewhere, in some places. That is, philosophy is bound to be linked up with metaphysics. Philosophy doesn't deal with the subjects of different branches like chemistry, botany or zoology or things like that, but nor even about social science like history, political science, economics. It doesn't have that subject matter of its own, but even then it is quite important. We are now having the fashion of finding books with the title, you must have read some of them perhaps, Philosophy of Religion, Philosophy of Social Exploration, Philosophy of Politics, Philosophy of Morals. I am just giving some examples. These are also there. So thereby what we are doing? It is said that we are only trying to read those different disciplines and try to find out what are its criteria, whether those criteria are proper or improper, or they are rational, or there are some lacuna they are involved in, that we are concerned with. So that a philosopher of religion is not necessarily a religionist. a philosopher of science need not himself be a scientist. Need not. Because just he is not concerned with the details of the subject which he analyzes, details. But at the same time, he definitely is concerned with the fundamentals, with the so-called essentials, and then he tries to reason out the rules and the regulations involved therein. That is what he does. So, in that way, philosophy can be understood. A group of thinkers, they very much strongly believe in it, and they go in that. They go in that, which I have just hinted some moments before. Some moments before I have hinted, indicated that this also is not the agreed view. This also is not well agreed view. There are variations, strong variations. For instance, the point is not only about this difficulty which I hinted before, that with what authority you are to talk about philosophy of chemistry or philosophy of religion without having the detailed knowledge of those subjects. Apart from that difficulty, there are other difficulties. To challenge the criterion or to question the original criterion of the rule, thereby are you talking yourself still in the framework of physics or chemistry or botany, or you are trying to go anywhere else to some other things. We have oceanology, for example, study of oceans, it's different. We have land geography. As children we were taught about geography and history together for some time. Then finding certain interlink or certain questions which overlap each other, we have now a new subject. What is that? Oceanography. Nuclear physics. And you go on finding different illustrations in that way. My little question is here for ourselves to probe into the matter. This kind of coinage, you understand the word coinage? Coinage between the two subjects, geography and oceanography, or X or Y, whatever it may. Is it done by a philosophical study? Is it done by a philosophical study? A new subject is formulated, or by the scientists themselves, or by the social scientists themselves. Even in social science also we are doing, even in philosophy nowadays we are doing it. For example, applied ethics. The traditional ethics is now kept to the periphery, and the central topic is now being raised about applied ethics. Before we try to find out ethics as the science of human conduct, we have to see how far that becomes relevant, or contextually it is desired at the moment. So in that way we talk about the different disciplines altogether. We now talk in terms of environmental ethics, bioethics, medical ethics, and so on and so forth. Subhani? I'm sorry. More than Muda Simulator. Hello, sir. ଆଚ୍ଛା 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 ସେ କ'ଣ କାଲି ମୋର ଗୋଟେ ଦାନ୍ତ ଉପଡ଼ା ହେଇଛି, ସେଥିପାଇଁ ମୁଁ ଟିକେ ସ୍ଲୋ ହେଇଛି. Anyway, thanks for the interruption. So this is the way in which one can raise the question that different subjects, if at all they are being born from time to time, even now it is going on, the process is going on, it is not because of some external source of inquiry, external source of study, like philosophy, if at all you take to be completely different. But rather it is all within itself. We find certain areas, then we try to combine together and bring a new subject of its own. We never wait for a philosopher to react and then to follow him. This becomes another question. So, even the view that philosophy is only analysis or clarifying, analyzing the different issues, though that has become very prominent in the during the last 200 years, it has also raised certain new issues, new problems. So that again the thinking is going on, study is going on to find out how to come out of the possible difficulties or the riddles or drawbacks or the handicap, the hampers and all. Now coming back to the classical field, metaphysics. Philosophy is the study of metaphysics, study of the suprasensible, or study of something which goes commonly with Aristotle's followers, that is beyond physics. Metaphysics is beyond physics. Physics deals only with phenomena, that deals with another phenomena. Maybe borrowing the expression from Kant. Phenomena and noumena. Well, that also continues for some time. That is remain intact with the minds of the general people or general for the first person time. It's all right. But then another question also can be raised. With any of us, any of you also can raise it. Are the metaphysicians have the commonality in the way in which it is being told to us? Are the metaphysicians, you see, are the metaphysicians quite common, or there is a commonality amongst those people and which we can identify, which we can pinpoint? Commonality between one Hegel and one Bergson. People, you have read Bergson, you have been acquainted with Bergson. You have been acquainted also with Hegel, very great person in his own time, or sometime after his death also. Whatever is real is rational. Whatever is rational is real. This is the key word of Hegelian philosophy. Isn't it? Whatever is real is rational. Whatever is rational is real. Now, Bergson's point of view is completely correct. No, you can't make a demarcation between the two concepts as if they are antagonistic to each other. Creation or creation and
Created.
no. Creation and evolution. Creation and evolution. Ordinarily, what do we say? There is something from which these things are created. God is the creator and the world is created out of him. This is the same. Right or wrong, that is not the question. I am just giving you the example. Isn't it? God is there and he creates the world. Evolution, Darwinian, the first spokesman, what did he say? No, world is not created. There is no God. There is nothing of the kind. Neither God nor spirit or hell or heaven. These are all mythological. But it is just evolved. The whole thing is a matter of evolution. Enrolling. Is clear? Everything is pressed. Gradually everything is rolling and rolling. Evolution refers to this second one. Now, they were said to be polar opposites. At one time, Bergson is a thinker who made a complete departure from that side. That is, what is it? What is his principal book? Creative evolution. This is another fantasy. But another interesting thing. Creative and evolution, they are combined. This is Bergson. Such a view is never there in Hegel. So, the conceptual philosophy and the type of philosophy that is developed by each of them, and illustrations can be multiplied. That shows that even among the metaphysicians, there is a great deal of diversity, great deal of differences. Two metaphysicians need not agree on all fronts, and maybe if they are very extreme thinkers in one side, they may clash with each other heavily. So views are concerned, not by physically, views are concerned. So that gives another guidance. You look to the lexicography, definitions, consult the dictionary. As about economics, there is a definition, or there is a saying, there is also philosophy, you will find. But then, if you look further deep into the matter, you find no, that is not the definition. There may be other views also. Perhaps the dictionary is too imprecise, too conspicuous, so that doesn't give the full picture. You have to go to the details. So that doesn't help. philosophers themselves do not have. Philosophical theories, they also are found to be so much variation. Whether you take the view of analysis or you take the view of metaphysics, in whichever you proceed, even in theory of knowledge, as I have said, law, current, and play, you will find there is a difference. One will say ideas alone are real, somebody will say objects alone are real, and the mind simply happens to know those things. If you are a spiritualist, or if you take a spiritual, turn into a person who is a philosopher, a spiritualist by conviction, what will he say? Ultimately, what will he say? What is the structure of reality according to him? Spirits are only real. Mark out the word only. Nothing but spirit. Even what you say matter is also nothing but the offspring of spirit. Originally it is all spirit. Whether you go with any traditional thinker or with modern thinker of Indian like Aurobindo or whatever it may be, the ultimate thing is supramental, not the mental, not the physical. Am I clear? This is what I mean. Metalist, what will you say? The stark metalist. Unless we try to make a combination, kala bhi acha hai, gora bhi acha hai. Unless we try to make that kind of approach, spirit alone is real, matter alone is real. That sort of thing is there. We notice it. In the course of our reading philosophy, different views we come across. There is no doubt about it. I will give you another example from our Indian sources. Indian sources. Classical Indian sources. Which is regarded as Indian sources, but virtually it becomes solely confined to no, Vedanta, that is too far. Hindu origin philosophy or Hindu, Buddha and Jaina may be taken together. But still it is Indian. We don't take anything that comes from outside like Christianity or Islam or X or Y or Z. That is the usual pattern. That is the way in which it is introduced. So the classical Indian philosophy, when you take that into consideration, we find another different approach. What is that? Oh, here philosophy is not simply logic chopping. You understand the word of logic chopping? It is not simply intellectual gymnastic. It is not simply a verbal jugglery. It is not simply knowledge for knowledge's sake. This is written in the textbook also. Like Hirayana or Dasgupta or your Sri Sharma or X or Y or Z. That philosophy is not simply knowledge for knowledge. It is not simply intellectual training. It is written there. And we are being taught and we are also teaching and we are also continuing that tradition since long, maybe more than 100 years. And what about? No, in India we have a different, altogether different conception of philosophy. Altogether, totally different. And we feel proud of it. We are boasting about it. What is that? What is that? Darsana. Darsana is not philosophy. This is also another thing. But darsana also is a typical type of thing that we include it within the philosophical discussion. Though certainly differing it from the Western or the external conception. Darsana is not simply knowledge for knowledge's sake. Darsana is not knowledge for knowledge's sake. I have told you. We are all well conversant with this. Darsana is very much for life. It is for the sake of living. It has a practical dimension, altogether different. It is not merely theoretical, just intellectual jugglery or verbal jugglery. Whether this will be there, this conclusion is alright, whether that premise is alright, whether the premises yield the conclusion or not, which we discuss in deductive or inductive logic, a part of philosophizing. It is not that. It is rather on the different corner that it is for the sake of life. How to have a life worth living, and it has a practical dimension. It is concerned with this present setup, living. A boy would ask me or a girl would ask me how philosophy, I'm sorry, what is that? Darsana. How Darsana is practical? In what sense? if at all I have a difficulty in my physique, there is head reeling or fever or anything like that, I go to the doctor or Vaidya or homeopath, whatever it may be, and then something is prescribed, I take it, I follow the advice of the doctor or whatever it may be, and then I will be cured. That is something practical or impractical. Now, if you read the different systems which are recognized by the writers, and the systems are the different types of darsana, sardarsana, ashtadarsana, or things like that. What do you find? Do they keep something definite by which certain practical significance is resulted? In most cases we find, in most, not all, in most cases we find something contrary to this. Something contrary to this. What is it so? Oh, you are thinking about these usual set worldly living to be alright. They are not alright. They are fundamentally constituted of two things which you do not know, which is not known ordinarily. Two things. You can now spell out to what system I am referring to. Jiva and Ajiva. They are the only two things. There is no necessity of bringing any further element. Like Deus ex machina of Descartes, that there is body and there is mind and there is overall a God. Not like that. Only Jiva Ajiva, that is enough. Can you say? Jainism. Now, if you follow the kind of procedure which is prescribed in the text or in the thinkers of the seers of the past, then you will get mukti. You will be. And again, there is a pause. According to Jaina, you all know perhaps, but still I am repeating here because it is interesting. Everybody is not gifted with the saying that if he tries, if he strives, if he endeavors, he would get mukti. In the line that is prescribed. Only a particular set people, they are privileged to get mukti. Women are not privileged to get mukti at all. They have to be reborn again.
As a man.
As a man.
So where it is stated?
Well, that I cannot say. Ask the seers who have composed it and those persons who follow it. But this is what is the fact, I am telling you.
So
Anyway.
women cannot get liver son.
According to that particular thing.
They will take another bath. They will never get
No,
something.
in the next month they may be married. Anyway, let us come back to my original query. If you take this to be one example, Jainism to be one example, whether right or wrong, I don't question that at the moment. Whether they are right or wrong, that I am not raising at the moment. But my simple query is, which I said in the beginning, is whether this kind of prescription that is given in Jainism or Jaina philosophy or Jaina dharma or whatever name, is it practical? Is it for the social? Is it for the living? Or it is something for the extra living purpose in their own way, which they have conjectured or which they have imagined or whatever. Anyway, this is one. The very starting point of the Vedanta in general, Vedanta in general, somebody raised this question. I have got the idea. I may be wrong, so you can question me. What is there in Vedanta? Whatever we usually find by our general perception or by day-to-day living or in the earthly setup, worldly setup, that is not the real. Something else is there. Your goal is not simply to live in happily or quite well within this lifetime, but you have to know that real. And that can be done only when fully, completely then the reward is given, either mukti or moksha or X or Y or Z. Is it good? Now how is it practical? How does it contribute to the practical utility or practical accomplishment or practical attainment? Unless you redefine covertly, not overtly, but covertly, that you are not you. You are something else. You are not the person, Rama or Sama or Jadu or anything. You are neither the body nor the mind. You are the Avinashwara Atma. So unless you redefine you and that is again to be pursued, whether how far this kind of redefining is necessary and logically or even minimum commonsensically, whether it is acceptable or not. Even commonsensically also, I have no commonsensical approach to find it to be justified. This is another difficulty. So, coming to the Indian part, anyway, coming to the Indian counterpart in the philosophical conceptual framework, the things do not help us. So all the time, in this way or in that way, we have some kind of things. But we need not be depressed. We need not be disappointed. We need not say that the whole jivanta brutha hai gala. Life has gone simply wasted to take up philosophy because we don't find any this way or that way. We have to further make queries, further probe into the matter, go deep into the matter and try to see in what way certain thread of light can be given, can be found out. In that way we should continue. Now I would invite you to ask questions today. Whatever, because I am not touching religion, not touching science, nor even the interrelation, whatever it is, because of certain scope that is given to us by the department. I keep myself reserved here. I would rather be very happy to raise questions.
So philosophy doesn't have any practical utility in this world.
That is a particular view. A particular view.
Who's the view?
The Indian view which I have considered.
Yes.
चलो तापर कौन
It is of no use to us in a practical sense.
No.
It doesn't create.
But if supposing one wants to go further in another, I will give you another example from the western side. Good. You are right in pointing out that in the Indian way of philosophizing we don't have any kind of satisfactory answer. The way at least in which classical Indian philosophy is presented to us. Right. But there is another thing. There are two broad divisions at one time in philosophical debate in the Western circle. You must have come across intellectualism and fill up the gap, anti-intellectualism. Intellectualism and anti-intellectualism. Whatever is real is rational. Rational is real. I have already spelled out. Hegel. So that captured the mind of the commoners and also philosophers for some time. But then there is a reaction. Why should everything must be tuned to or pinpointed to reason? There are many things which we decide or which we agree or on which we work upon, which is not clearly reason or intellectually oriented. Of course, reason in that particular specific sense. Not that overtly we should be unreasonable. Anybody will take task into that. But then too much of intellectualism and talking philosophical findings only in terms of intellect and nothing beyond that, there are certain rethinking. In case of Bergson, he is a champion of intuition. You know, Bergson is a champion of intuition. And his own expression, if you remember correctly, from Creative Evolution, on which he got Nobel Prize, not on philosophy but on literature. Intellect kills, murders, and butchers reality. Intellect kills, murders, and butchers reality. This is the expression. This is one way of thinking. But there is another way, accepting the general sense of intellectual reasoning or reasonableness, as I said to you. There is also another reaction made from the Western horizon that no, let us not brood our mind, or let us not engage ourselves only in going through the debate between the realism and the idealism. Ultimately, what is real, what is there, that becomes the point at issue. And then there is the battle between the X party and the Y party. But we must see, as he has raised the question, about the utility. About utility. What is the use of this kind of debate? What is the use of philosophical pursuit if it is not in any way useful? And then the first reaction, there are different varieties, gradually it is being developed more in different directions. Whatever is useful is true, and whatever is true is useful. Whose slogan it is? Whatever is you, right, pragmatism. So pragmatism is a revolt against intellectualism. It is one kind of revolt, not the revolt, it is a revolt. Bergson also is a revolt. We have intuition, champion of intuitionism. But then there is a difference, good enough difference between the two. Pragmatists in the beginning, they have said whatever is real is useful. That was the kind of attribution, at least to some of them. Though gradually they try to reformulate, modify their position to some extent, to a considerable extent. What they say that, well, whatever we claim to be, or whatever we claim in philosophy, or whatever generally we accept, if that is directly or indirectly not in any way useful to us, pragmatic to us, it must have a pragmatic sense. It is not utility of, what is that name? Mill. Mill's utility is only within the ethical dimension, but it is something more in general platform. It must have a pragmatic. During that time, supposing there are different views with regard to religion, then a James would say, without condemning them to be all nonsense or all irrational, he would say, varieties of religious experience. This is James' coinage. Right? James. William James. James is William James, right. Varieties of religious consciousness, he would say. But then, thereby he gives us at least a kind of seat, a place to say that even religion, the varieties of religion, they have some kind of use, though not for everybody but to some group of people. So in that way they can be preserved, they can be retained. That is the kind of thing. I am only giving you the examples, that different views are there. Somebody may again also harp upon the point of utility or usefulness, but at the same time he or she would differ from William James' view that religion must be of various types and each of the varieties they must have some efficacy or some utility. He may differ from that. One can differ from that. So in that way, this is the point. One word about applied ethics, about which I have already the allusion, not illusion, allusion, a norm of ethics, norm or conduct, or rule of conduct, that is to be conceptualized and be given the fundamental status, the original status in the subject matter. The more important thing at the present situation, at the present context, what we say to be moral 2000 years ago, a moral norm to be valid for 2000 since 2000 years, or 3000 years, whatever it may be, whether that is to be retained or that is to be re-examined. Whether that is to be retained or to be re-examined. I will give you one example. Just one, you can multiply that. The example from medical ethics. You must have come across a term, some of you, euthanasia, which is usually translated, or the synonym is given, mercy killing. Mercy killing, right, good. Mercy killing. You never find that to be discussed in any textbook of philosophy of the traditional type. We don't come across about mercy killing. But now, philosophical discussion is being carried on in the field of medical ethics. Whether this is to be accepted, whether it is good or bad, or the conclusion is to be accepted absolutely or it's to be rejected forthright, that is not the point which I am raising. I am simply saying that mind has become enlarged to take up these things now, because that becomes a point. Our information till today is more or less this: euthanasia is not legalized. In many countries of the world, very few countries, one is Belgium, but now some others are coming. Some others are there, but their number is very few. They have legalized it. There is a legal sanction for it, but others are not. What does it mean, mercy killing, as he says? What does it mean? That a person is in a very critical condition, has remained in coma for a long time, and the doctors, they have come to the opinion that there is no chance of survival or coming back to sense. Survival's possibility is zero, according to their version. In that case, whether he should be continued to live in that coma stage further, or he should be given some dose by means of which the life becomes extinguished of that particular person. Okay, this is the point. And then we say, no, whatever it may be, since the person doesn't clearly give option for death, we should not go in that way. Supposing the person gives option, should we also? There is still some questions raised in that way. Even if the person thought of, oh, even then the doctors or the relatives, or there is a common understanding that no, we should try our best till the last. And we feel that is beyond our control, that is different. But we should try. We should not make a drastic check of this kind. I just give another example, similar or very much relevant to this point. Do you know about Vinoba Bhave? Have you heard about it? Vinoba Bhave. Social Bhutan. Do you know how he died? Any knowledge? It's not exactly mercy killing, but mercy killing is given by others. Doctors or the other people, they decide that, well, no point of it is not, but it is a very peculiar time. Vinoba did not take any food towards the last. And he said, don't give me any food. Also, as it has come in papers or in the news agencies that he, without taking any food or without taking medicine or whatever it may be, ultimately he died. This one example is there, which you may roughly say as Ichha Mrityu. Ichha Mrityu is not same thing as mercy killing. Just clarifying. Anyway, that is there in, at least in our present day setup. Though suicide is a legal offence. Suicide is a legal offence. Even if you decide and you still remain alive, then a case can be filed against you. But it was there and it could not be checked. That is a different thing. Out of disgust, like the farmers committing suicide, it comes out in paper. Anyway, this is there. Another example I am giving. What about Ramchandra? About this mercy, Ichha Mrityu, all that I say in the No, I am talking about Ramchandra. Marjada Purushottam Ramchandra. I am taking that example. What do you hear? After everything is finished and all, Draupadi and others, the Sita and other relatives, they have all the, and the Rajkarya is already over and he has become pretty old and there is nothing more to contribute to the society or whatever it may be. So, he decided to drown. And what is the kind of narration that is given to us? He drowned himself in Satadru River and he died. That is how this whatever has been left to us, circulated to us. Now, that is accepted. That is not only accepted. I would rather add one more word. Rama's death is glorified. In the tradition, it is glorified. It is not simply a chapter of ABC. I will give another example from philosophical, classical philosophy. You know Kumarila Bhatta? Kumarila Bhatta, what is his last? Shankara went to him. You must have seen some TV or things like that. To have a kind of debate. And he said, no, now my time is over. You go to another person, my sister, anywhere. That story is there before us. Mandan Mishra or anything like that. Now, he was, and it is a case of Ichha, self-immolation. Kumarila did it. Kumarila did it. And that is accepted in the tradition. Even now also those who are very much well conversant in this kind of talk, they don't oppose it. They only talk about the incident in which Shankara made the Digvijaya gradually. But they never talk about this incident, they will never try to analyze that. Another example I am giving. Sati. You know Sati very well. It's not a part of philosophy, but it is about tradition. Not strictly any philosophical debate goes on this point. Thanks to Ram Mohan Roy, that reform movement. I will not go to the details, you know. You know how at the beginning Ram Mohan was opposed, to what extent. Even beaten and everything was done. Anyway, that is the question of history. But what I want to hint here is that, because I was discussing about bio and applied ethics, I am giving these examples to relate these different examples to that particular topic. The point is, the conception of moral rules, moral norms, moral ideals, conduct, etc., which are all the time very much vigorously pursued in the traditional ethics, which we call as the normative ethics. Is normative ethics. What is the standard? What is good? Whether good is a pleasure or good is a perfection or things like that. Whether this karma is a virtue or not. Taking the Indian example, many things you can just go on multiplying. Whether that itself is conducive to the practice at a particular time, or must be the case in all the time. Kalajoyi Upanyas, we are being told. This Upanyas, this literature is so classic, it is beyond time, it is timeless. Its worth is timeless, it continues for time. This is an expression. It is not only told in philosophic pages, but also in other spheres also. But then the desirable, intellectually also, practically also, is it not necessary to rethink about these norms and to reset whether ethical norms must be decontextualized or contextualized? Decontextualized or contextualized? This is not what I say. This is also been said long back by John Locke in another context, and also subsequently reiterated by David Hume in another manner. But then such a question is relevant or irrelevant, I throw upon him. Such a kind of rethinking whether it is relevant or irrelevant. So in that way, the philosophic pursuit can be carried on. Utility can be brought up. That is my reaction to your question. Yes?
Is not philosophy creative metaphysics?
Hmm?
Is not philosophy a sort of creative metaphysics?
A sort of
Creative metaphysics.
creative metaphysics. By creative metaphysics, what exactly you just spell out a little more.
Clarification of doubts that philosophy undertakes.
But how it is creative? How it is creative?
Creative in the sense it resolves the doubts, it resolves the problems. That's how it's creative. It's not philosophy creative.
Quite right, quite right. But then again there is another problem. What do we mean by saying that questioning, re-questioning, philosophical activity as questioning or re-questioning, clarifying certain doubts or confusions and comes to a point of result, as you say, or solution, whatever it is. How do you think, or how should we think that this solution or this resolution or resolve, that is also not to be modified, not to be changed? Is it flexible or inflexible?
Something new doesn't come to how the problem is solved.
We go on. The better reaction would be perhaps what I think, that yes, we clarify, but still there are certain doubts, some difficulties. We re-modify. There is no limit to modify. But because there is a question of modification later on, therefore today what we have found to be the conclusion and practically significant, that we need to get rid of. That doesn't follow. This is the way in which we move. Should I clarify once more? Supposing there is a dispute about certain practical issues, conclusions are there, certain dogmas are there, we try to pinpoint, we try to fix it up, and we find a solution, or we try to resolve the conflict. Okay? Now, after finding the decision, after attaining the decision, after solving or resolving the problem, for the moment, should we think that it is the solution for all time to come? No, we don't say that. Right? Good. So if we resolve that, from this again does it follow necessarily that we should not go for resolving, we should not go for solving, because the solution what we attempt today is likely to be changed tomorrow or years after or ages after. Therefore, what we now come to the conclusion is all wrong. Should we say that? No, we should not say that.
So can we say philosophy is creative metaphysics in transition? Philosophy is creative metaphysics in transition.
Transition? No.
Metaphysics in transition.
I still am not very much clear about creativity here. The adjective creativity, when you use the word metaphysics, I fail to be clear on this point, because the metaphysical conclusions, whether in East or in West, whether in classical Indian thought or even in the Western thought, whether they say something to be flexible or final.
Why I feel so is, why I feel so is, science is philosophy concretized. When you talk of science, science is philosophy concretized.
Why?
Because when thought and philosophy gets a concrete shape, it is no more philosophy. The sciences say it is our part, it is science.
For instance,
For any scientific discovery or creation, invention has a creativity beforehand. So it is it comes from
Oh, okay, I got your point. Now I got your point. What you say is not concerning philosophy, you are trying to say something concerning science.
no, comes from philosophy.
That is a further question which you have to analyze. Which you have to analyze. Supposing, now I give the example, because you have talked about science, therefore I am giving the examples from science. Classical science and modern science. Newton, Einstein, okay? They are the noted scientists in their own positions. Now the theory of this gravitational theory, it has